Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Wednesday afternoon here on Kobold Press. I'm your littlest red dot, and I'm here with our newest GM to the Kobold fam, Erik Frankhouse. Erik, I'm really glad to have you back.
Hey, how are you doing, Dot?
I'm all right. How are you holding up?
Pretty good. It's been nonstop since we recorded, like normal.
Woo! We'll talk
Yeah,
about that today. Yeah, I feel
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I'm on my countdown to vacation, everybody.
That's
Countdown
the
to vacation.
best.
Yeah,
Also, by
it's
the way,
also
love the
yours.
sideward
Oh,
patch.
my side pocket.
Is it a
It,
pocket still?
yeah, it's not even practical for anything. Like you can't even like
It should
look.
go the
It
other way so it's easier to reach across and pull
yeah.
things out.
Yeah, it definitely is not good for a whole lot, but it sure is cute with my little
It's
hand
super
warmies.
cute.
Yeah, so we're here usually to talk all things Kobold Press, but right now we've got some interesting stuff going on. Now, I can say
Yeah.
the last Kickstarter, big success, totally funded, and I believe that pre-orders are open now. So if you did not
Oh,
back Waste of Chaos, we went pretty much straight into pre-order, which is really exciting for you because it still gives you a chance to get in on the initial shipment. Because if you
yeah.
wait too long, you're gonna have to wait for us to get second shipment, and that's gonna take a little longer. Um,
That was the new one you guys just did the recording for, right?
yeah, we did the big Western show, which was very fun. I say Western, I think it's more like dusty apocalyptic is how I'd say it. Like it's got a Western vibe, but really that's because we used the firearms options from the new Tome
Right.
of Heroes.
Right.
But Jason kind of took this Waste of Chaos book, which is more of like a reference manual, like a guide for building
Sure.
your own apocalyptic setting. And
Yeah.
he was like, I want it to be a Western. And we were like, that's dope. So he kind of built his own world, piecing the book together, which is interesting because that's kind of what you did with the new
Yeah.
Ebon Tides
Yeah,
book,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
what we're going to talk about today. So, first off, in case folks don't know who you are, tell them who you are, where they can find you, what's awesome in your life.
If you want to find me in the things I do, it's Erik Frankhouse everywhere. Erik Frankhouse Presents is my channel. I'm the network director for Norse Foundry. I do all the streams over there. I'll be on later tonight at 5. And I am known for doing competition GMing. And then I work in world design from video games to animation. I did that for many years. And now I just stream and make content full time, which has been a really cool turnover for, the whole COVID life. I think a lot of us did it, but not
Yeah.
everyone stayed in it.
Yeah, we had
So,
some of us had to do it.
yes. Well, we all know that story. We've all heard the same 2-year sob story. My job was gone and everything else. I made the pivot and went, I worked in newsrooms the entire life, and I was like,
Yeah.
I let's just go. Screw it. It's the same thing. I enjoy it. Let's go.
So is that what brought you over? It was the pandemic, or were you kind of doing it before and then it just
So
geared up?
my brother and I, when I was much younger, he was very big into the fighting game scene, like Street Fighter, and he
Nice.
did like Evo and competition, and we did a review site called Refresh and Reload, and
Oh,
I
okay.
was interviewing like fighters and people who create games from Capcom, and I loved it. I've always enjoyed interviewing people, but when he decided he didn't want to do it anymore, we closed it down. I was like, I'll just go back into working in tabletop. I enjoyed it. I was doing cartography most of the time on top of working in the service industry. And then I was like, I just want to get back into what I was doing. I don't want to work in video games anymore. COVID hit, and I was like, I'm stuck at home. I have a new PC. I know how to do this stuff. Let's just figure out the things I don't know. And
Right,
that was the
sure.
2-year journey. You
Nice.
you plot out the stuff you don't know and start walking forward.
Yeah, and learn the stuff you don't.
You learn
Uh,
OBS is bad. Never update before a show. I should have
yeah.
known that to begin with. Never let it auto update. All that fun stuff.
Yeah, all of this stuff, yeah, that nobody tells you and you always learn the hard way.
Mm,
Well,
mm.
that's very cool. Like, that was something actually I did not know,
Yeah.
about you. So, you said you came back to tabletop, which I'm guessing means you've been playing a long time. Where did you kinda start?
I never left tabletop in actually like playing in tabletop, but I left working in it for a while and came back. So I I told this story before, and I feel like I always get a little bit of flack for it. I started when I stole my uncle's first edition Dungeon Master's Guide and Player's Book, first edition, signed by Gygax. I stole them from his house. I never gave them back. I still have them. And that is how I started D&D, and it happened because I played in somebody else's game, and I was like, man, I feel like I could tell a story better than them. So I did. I went and just
Yep.
started doing it, and I was like 11 or 12
Oh, okay.
learning THACO and old school D&D, you know, and I'm
That's
old.
awesome.
The white isn't from Pandemic. It's been here for a while. So that's how I started. Someone asked me what my main is in Street Fighter. Blanca, and I would have to say Oni in the most recent one.
Ooh.
Yeah. I still play a lot of Street Fighter. I'm not going to lie. The new
You learned all kinds of things today, everybody here on Kobold Chats.
Yeah, there's a lot. The only thing I haven't done is what I tell people is I've never trained dolphins. It's the only thing I haven't done yet.
Well, you still have time. Your beard's not entirely white yet.
I still have time to train dolphins. Once it's totally white, can't train dolphins anymore.
Yeah, at some point you gotta, you know, you gotta go for those things you don't know, right?
Well, is it when it's all gray you can't swim anymore? Is that why? What's the reason?
I would assume at some point when you get gray enough, you really just want to sit and watch the dolphins.
True, that's probably true. But yeah, so that was kind of my start into it, and then I never turned back. I got in trouble as kids, lived through part of the Satanic Panic in the 90s and 80s, and I never turned back around. I ran D&D. Gosh, when I used to be a youth leader, I ran D&D at church. Got in trouble for that.
I can only imagine.
I renamed it. What did I name it? I renamed it into like Angels and Warriors or something stupid. I renamed it so I could get away with running it at church.
That's so wonderful.
Yeah. I still got in trouble though.
That's such a great. I did that when I was still vice principal. Before I came over to Kobold Press, I started a gaming club for the high schoolers. Which their parents definitely thought they were playing video games, and we were definitely playing Dungeons and Dragons. The kids loved
100%.
it. But I'm not exactly sure, like, the kid that was in trouble for not making the grades to play baseball, his dad would be like, yeah, keep rolling dice, man. Like,
no, that did not. I promise you that never happened.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no way. So I was like, we'll just call it a gaming club. We can play all kinds of different games. So
yeah, I had a gaming club too. Our art teacher, Mr. Sanderson, he played a lot of board games. Played a lot of board games in art class between stuff. He believed if you draw for the first half of your class, and then afterwards you should continue drawing if you feel it, or you should do something else that inspires. So we did that. That was my high school teacher. So that was always fun. And we played a lot of board games in that class. Oh my God.
That's cool.
I fucking hate Yahtzee. Am I allowed to swear on this show?
Well, you have, so too bad.
I bleeped it out a little bit.
Yeah. We always had it at the Protestant Students Community as a regular workshop.
There you go. That's a genius cover up.
Workshop. Oh man.
I'd like to know on math.
Chat, YouTube, if you're watching this at any point, what did you call Dungeons and Dragons to cover it up so people would let you play? That's such a great question. I want to know. I have notes somewhere. I want to say it was Angels and Warriors, or Warriors and Angels, or something like that. And everybody had an alternate form where they could turn into an angel to fight demons. And I was like, no, we're just telling stories here as a group. We're all playing angels.
Your entire Bible is stories. Why can't we tell stories together? And I got away with it for a couple years. And then I got nailed.
You really got away with it.
Oh yeah. I ran it in church. Like when we were supposed to be doing whatever Sunday morning class stuff was, I was running D&D.
You were running D&D instead of going to Sunday school? Man.
Yeah.
Oh, it was pretty fun. That's actually a very fun origin story of how we have Erik Frankhouse today. So I guess we should actually talk about this show, D&D and the show that you have GM'd for us. So we've been talking about it for a while, but we came back to Athena and Matt because we enjoyed working with them so much, and we said, what new thing can we do? And the Book of Ebon Tides, everyone, has just, of course, dropped the general public. Backers now have it. It's amazing.
It's very well done.
It's very well done. And so we said, this is something that's perfect for October. Something in the shadow realm, a little dark, a little spoopy. We had a hat on. And so I thought, who could I pass it off to that loves October and spoopy?
Yeah, I love me some Halloween and horror. Horror is my jam.
That was, I immediately thought, well, it's got to be Erik Frankhouse, and so somehow I managed to wrangle my way to the table with Athena and Matt and Noir, who's another Kobold Press regular, and
Yep.
we just launched a show literally last night over on Athena's channel, Half Dragon AP, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about what it was like for you to start building this campaign. Now we'll try to be as
Sure.
spoiler friendly as possible and not give away too much because only the first episode's out, but we're gonna dive a little deep,
So I'll say
everybody.
I'll
So
only talk about the first episode in
okay,
passing,
okay.
but I can talk about the concept and the process that I use when I'm designing stuff, because I did a long series of videos about how I run games at a table, but I still haven't done one for streaming really deep. I've done like a loose one, but I run a very different style game, and the way I prepare for it is very different. Like,
Mhm.
yes, my other game, I have this gigantic leather book with like our logo on it and stuff, but honestly, it's just plot webs. So, same kind of thing for this. So, where would you like to start with this then?
Well, that's a good question. I also want to talk a little bit too because I'm gonna share my screen here in a second because
Sure,
we also used Roll20
we
as our
did.
VTT for this show, and
Yep.
you blew my Roll20 mind. You blew it. You showed me things I didn't even know were possible, and so I feel like because Kobold Chats is well known for spilling the beans, you might
Okay.
have to spill some Roll20 beans today as well.
I can probably do that.
I thought you could. All right, let's see. I'm gonna actually share, and then we'll hop right in. So
Sure.
I gotta actually share the screen. Um, the campaign that you wrote, which is all original, everybody, okay,
Hmm.
is definitely from and using the Book of Ebon Tides. So I handed it over and I was like, "Do what you want with this." Where did you start? What were you drawn to? How did you decide this is what we were
So,
doing?
So the first thing we decided for this was we knew we didn't have a ton of art time to get art made this
Right.
time around, and I was like, "What are we gonna do? Why don't we just have them pick it from the book?" So one of
Mhm.
my favorite things to do, while I love my players, I'm gonna speak primarily from a GM's point of view. Players are inherently lazy, so I said, just pick art from the book, and then you can make a character if you want. I need to know now, or we're going to make our own. And I did that because I wanted to make sure thematically we were showcasing the book itself. So I think everybody besides Athena is playing a race from the book,
Yep, I think that's correct.
and she's playing a race from Kobold.
Yes.
So that was the game plan. I wanted to make sure we were all doing that to showcase what it was, and just to kind of show a really diverse like racial cast for it, because it's just cool to see a bear, a squirrel, a
A Dara
changeling,
cool and a
and a dark cool
changeling,
that
yeah.
walk into a bar. So like that was kind of the concept behind that. I wanted to make sure we did that first and foremost, and then from there, you and I went, all right, we're making characters. Let's sit down and do it.
Yep,
And
yep.
Roll20, while it helps make characters and there's a character sheets on it to store it all, I'm a firm believer, especially after COVID, to let people roll actual dice when we're on screen. Because look, if you're gonna cheat, it doesn't change my day as a GM.
Right.
And if you're gonna do something like that, that's on you. You sleep with yourself. I don't. So we just ran with having everyone roll our own dice. We got one of the new dice sets out to Athena for that.
Yep.
And that was kind of the starting. For me, for the book, the first thing I do after I flip through everything, I usually go through the maps. I love designing adventures around really good maps or really good set pieces or really good pieces of art, especially when I'm showcasing something, because it allows us to
Mhm.
use art that's in the game or art that's in a book and then build off of it. Because for me, I don't like running pre-published stuff. That's not my jam. It is a great tool. I will file serial numbers off all day long, but I don't like running pre-written. And this is going to come back to school. I hated studying it so
Mm.
much.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And I have a really good retention for concepts and ideas and things like that, but I don't like having to read, digest, and highlight a book to keep all that. I went to art school, kids. Come on.
Hey,
I,
hey,
I
me too. I get you. I feel you.
I don't like studying. And I learned as a kid, as I was trying to run pre-written adventures, it just wasn't for me. And I try it, I'd say almost once a year, twice a year. There are some pre-published stuff that I can do that I enjoy doing. But for the most part, I don't run them because they don't flow in a way that works for me. And that came down to how I wanted to design the show. When you're streaming, you have to fit in X amount of time. You know you're doing X amount of episodes, but you still want to give the players some freedom.
Mhm.
Like you will see in our second episode, my players changed everything I had planned in the second episode.
Oops.
And on screen right now, it has the name of the first one, which was great. It was Twilight's Hand. It was a setup for what we're doing. It's in the middle of an event that happens in the world with 2 moons. And the world itself was very dark. And the tendrils you see around the screen, I started wanting to get art assets together. So that's my next kind of step. I look at everything, look at what it looks like, see the parts that I like, and they have the tides and how they ebb and flow. And that's similar to something I run for my home setting, except it's not shadow. Mine's something different.
Sure.
And I was like, how do I make this function and make it be part of it? So I started looking for art assets. And as I do art assets, I cheat. I have my entire tabletop is a dry erase board.
That's dope.
So I use wet markers and I literally just write off to the side here. And I take notes as I'm going through. And then I use Rocketbook and take photos and upload them so I have digital versions in case I need it for anything. And I just start collecting art assets. And Dot, we started doing this like, I'm going to make tokens and everything right now.
Yep.
I'm going to take all the
And
art
in fact,
assets.
you
give
had
me what
such
I
a
need.
great art asset. I ended up using it across
Yeah.
almost everything. So
Yeah.
like it was interesting the way that the kind of collaborative design piece came together.
For me, like the visual aspect is what people see. That's why you're watching Twitch versus why you are listening to a podcast. You want the visual aspect of it. And Roll20 lets me do that. So the first thing I would say in Roll20 is I love building rollover tokens. And I can show an example. So this background that we have here that says Twilight's Hand, since you ruined the second episode and changed everything as players, should we show the second?
Sure,
episode
it won't
name?
spoil anything because it's not actually accurate.
No, it's not accurate. Well, you made it there, but you changed everything, Dot. So a rollover token is just a table of tokens, and it's a table of art assets that you can switch between. For when you're doing maps, I found that it works really well if you're not using dynamic lighting. I have found using dynamic lighting when you're streaming very memory intensive, and you run into problems streaming with dynamic lighting a lot of times. Home games, fine. Streaming, there's just something about capturing it and what happens, and OBS screams at you, and then your players are yelling at you, and it's easier just to skip that step. And this is kind of my answer to it. I can just do rollover maps and block things off. This is just all the images that I built, redid with the tag assets, using the font from the book, using the cover of the book, and I just kind of made a simple piece to go through. But the outside edge in the game, there is the chance of the tides kind of showing up. And I wanted something to showcase that on the maps. So I'm going to take us over to the first map here. Let me make sure I grab the first one, and then we'll talk about how in the hell I did that.
Great, because people are going to be very excited. Hopefully, I might have to do a refresh, but let's see. I may have to do a refresh of Roll20.
Well, here, I'm going to bring it over now. It takes a second for it to load. Just give it a moment. It should load up the animated piece for it. So, is this the right one? No,
my cat has
that's the
zoomies,
caravan.
so I apologize.
We didn't use this one. We didn't use this one. This is the one. I have a bunch of maps. I wish I could showcase that.
Yeah, I think I need to refresh.
There are 30 maps here in total, in case you went to one place or another. But this one, you might not have the asset on in your VTE.
Oh, I did. That's why I think I needed a refresh, because I turned the extension on.
Gotcha. Well, give it a second. We'll see what happens. If not,
it's loading very slowly, but it is loading.
So this allows you to do animated features. While there are a lot of VTE products out there, animated isn't something that's actually easy to do on every platform. Roll20, you have the ability to upload animated GIFs, but it is limited by the size of the file. This lets me bypass that. So these are all Google Drive files. It might be choppy on her screen because it's being screen captured. But this is Google Drive file, and that file is then turned into a direct link through Google Direct Links. You basically just take the link, drop it in, and it makes a direct link. And you have a drop down that you add in. And I'm using VTTE. Justice made this, not the Justice that you and I know, but the gentleman's name's Justice. You add it into your Roll20, or sorry, not your Roll20, but into your Chrome or your Firefox, and it lets you add in these assets. It also gives a lot of other really cool things like scaling and sizing and lighting options and allowing to make your background transparent every time so it's not a color. And that allows me to get these really good animated backgrounds. So this is the outside set piece And we only use this for a moment. And I'm not going to open up and show the inside of it because so much happens in the inside of
It's
this
true. It's true. Yeah.
walking train, the first episode. So that was that. This is the whole concept. And they were tunneling underground on this passage because in Ebon Tides, you have a chance of getting somewhere faster or slower, depending on if you can travel the tides properly. And our group did it really well once and really bad twice.
It's true. It's true.
And it gives you like I think it's 30% faster or like 200% slower. It's a really big penalty if you mess up and get lost. But it kind of allows you to do some cool stuff. Like you can shift the landscapes, which I love. I'm a big Ravenloft fan. I love the Domains of Dread. I know it's not for everybody, but the idea of being able to shift the borders or like transport a town to an area where it shouldn't have been. And we talk about it that at the end of the first episode, beginning of the second, but there's a chance that the distance you're supposed to go is further. And I do believe in the red line travel method where it's like, okay, you're going from point A to point B. Unless something interesting happens in here, it's just a consumption of food or maybe there's an issue that pops up. In this version, you're racing against the clock for this show. I had something set up if you failed.
Oh, interesting.
I don't want to talk about it now because I don't want to ruin the show. But I can tell you that I had something if you failed getting back in time and you were razor's edge on the time frame back, but Noir with his crazy spells.
Crazy spells. Yeah. Thanks, Kobold Press.
There is something that happens in the second episode with spells that like I was not expecting to have happen, which was fantastic.
I feel like that happened a few times in the campaign, actually.
It did. What was the name of the one he had? Like Moonbeam Translocation or something crazy?
It's like Moonbeam Transport. Actually, you know what? I bet I could look it up. I'm in Roll20. Let's see what it was. I'm going to search it, I think.
So that really messed it up. Yeah, project. So VTTE is free. They have a Discord as well. You can back them on Patreon. It's really cheap if you want to. But they're really responsive. If there's ever like, because you gotta remember they're dealing with Chromium, which is the engine for Chrome, and they're dealing with Roll20. So as things constantly fluctuate between the two, because we all know you open Chrome, there's a damn update every time. They usually update within the same day, which is the only reason I use it for shows. And to be smart about stuff, which you can't see on her screen, I also have a non-moving version of the map down in the lower left-hand corner, just in case Roll20 doesn't work for the day. So that's a big difference between streaming and at home, because I had to be prepared no matter what. But for me, it wasn't hard. I just uploaded it. I made it really small. It's a token that rolls over again, so I can switch between them. It has all those maps in the rollover token. And that allows me to if this did not work, have everybody turn off VTE for the day, because it's just a plugin you turn off on Chrome, and then have a map still and just size it perfectly to where we need. And I also make sure that all of my maps are 1920 by 1080, and my real estate on Roll20 is 1920 by 1080 always. So that when I'm setting up my OBS frames or when Dot was doing it on her end, you know you're capturing the same size window every damn time. And those are just the little mistakes that will screw you up constantly. But you can set that stuff up in advance, and VTTE lets you do it as well. But you can also just do it before you even launch the game in Roll20. You can set up all the pre-things that you want and make sure that that's set to go before anyone even comes to your table. So yeah, that's one of my favorite things. Yeah, there you go. I can also do that stuff for you too. I can pop anyone on screen you want.
I was about to say, I was just looking. I was looking to see what spells old Nicholas had so I could figure it out maybe, because the one I picked was not the right one that I. Let's see. Shadow Portal?
No, it was something Moonbeam something or another.
Let's see. Shadow Hands.
It was one of the higher level spells. I don't think it was Shadow Portal. That was the one he wanted to use to teleport in. But we picked a bunch of spells from the book from Ebon, and then what was the other one we used for everything?
Deep Magic.
That's the one that's all Deep Magic. But you had another one that's like all the magical items too. We did a bunch of stuff.
Vault of Magic. So when we did character building, one of the things was really awesome was we were a little bit higher level. So Erik was like, "Here, have some magic items," and that might have come back to bite you in the butt.
Nah. Not at all. So for me, if you're going to be playing a little more of a high fantasy game where you have a lot of stuff going on, I would rather have players have the magical items, have fun with them, than to look at them their entire life. It's like that Ferrari you always want, but you never get it.
Yeah.
And this, what, just give them the magical item. As a GM, it doesn't phase you as long as you know the core mechanic for a game.
Yeah.
You can always scale appropriately. If that first time they use it, it didn't scale right, write it down and bump it up again. And when I start, I should probably talk about how I plan this. This was the whole question.
Yeah.
I do a plot web. I do a plot web for everything, and I have a way I draw little tokens. So I do. God, do I have something I can show? I do have something I can show.
Oh wait, I'm gonna make you big. Hold. If we're gonna do it that way, let's see if I can't.
Yeah, hold on here. I think I have a plot web in here. One of these does. Do I have one in here? I have one for Warpaint, which is another show that I'm currently running. I do one for most of these episodes.
It's interesting. I do that's so cool. I do them for when I'm writing something, like I have to actually write a campaign, not just run one. But that's very cool. A plot web.
So,
like it.
So the reason I do it is I use, this is gonna be really hard to see, I think, but we'll try.
All right. We'll give it a
there, we'll go dark.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
So I have different types of boxes I draw for everything.
Oh.
I have a plot hook one, which is just a hook that goes on the top. And every one of the boxes has a square to check things off if they did it, like kind of like a checklist.
Oh, okay.
So I have a plot hook. I have an explosion for combat. I have a trap, like a bear trap logo with a square. Because what I've learned in almost any game that you run that is DC based, it's either almost all tabletop is DC or success based. Yep. Doesn't matter what it is. And I have an easy, medium, and hard difficulty I preset before the show I do. And for that set piece, and I'll adjust that by whatever, if it's +1 or +2, whatever that adjustment would be for those games. And the traps, I'll write E, M, or H in there, and I know what that DC should be. And that also makes it universal for any game that I run. Because then I just have a little note card that tells me what the DCs are for that game. So me prepping to run a game is an hour of work. It doesn't matter what the system is.
Yep.
And then I go and find whatever makes that system shine.
Yeah.
So if you're running 5e, it's going to be how to use advantage and disadvantage. But there is a rule in the GM's book for +2s, and no one uses it, where you should be giving out a +2 once in a while instead of giving the whole equivalent to a +5 for an advantage and disadvantage. So I have that stuff written down. So it's like a hook, a GM note has a GM piece next to it. There's something else. A key item will have a key. It looks like a skeleton key across the top.
No.
And then I put all the lines together, and then while we're playing, I use a different color, and I just highlight the path they take.
That's such a cool idea. I like that.
So as you go back through, you can, even if they went to the place, if I don't check that box, that means they didn't do what I needed them to do there. And I believe in doing aftermath notes versus a bunch of show notes up front. Yep. So I write this little piece out, and then afterwards I do all my show notes while it's fresh, or luckily streaming, you can rewatch what you're doing, which is great. And I do that, and I just do a bunch of show notes for it. So I find that the easiest way to do it. And for this show, I did that exact thing. I wrote a bunch of show notes, and I did it after each episode to make sure the next episode we were taking off at the right spot. Anything fun that they did, I can highlight if it's needed. But the plot webs are just quicker to look at than trying to dredge through columns of text.
Yep.
And you're an art student. My art school didn't even have, this is so ridiculous. They didn't even have numbers for their elevator. They had colors for floors.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that.
So it just made me laugh. But your idea to recognize an icon, a symbol, or a color over a number and a block of text is so much more. And that is how I learned to start designing all of my stuff. I wanted it to be where I wasn't having to hunt and peck for everything. Like I was a bad typist. Like I wanted to make sure I had what was needed. So that's how I designed each one of these shows. And I gathered
really
all my
cool.
resources.
I was hoping to find one of mine, but I guess it must be in a notebook.
I have the ones for the show here, but I want to pull it up because they're side by side.
Oh.
Like, because I have one side for each episode. But like, so this is the one I use for our game.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And this is a rocket book as well. If you don't know what rocket books are, by the way, everyone, they are those friction pens you had as a kid that you tried to erase and tear your paper up, except they don't tear your paper up. And the paper is almost like Tyvek, like envelopes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So
So it's got like a vellum finish on it.
Yeah. So I did my initial notes. Everything's color coded in these. Can I get it without shine? No, I'm not gonna be able to. I don't think.
That's cool. I have a notebook that's like a dry erase notebook that's kind of like that. It's like a H the page or dry erase. That's cool.
We'll do this. I'm gonna turn this light off. It's because there's daylight coming through right now, which there usually isn't.
Yeah.
But
that is a very cool notebook, though.
Ready?
I can kind of see it.
I can just send the images to you.
That's also true.
So ready? You're gonna be. Watch this. So they are the barrel rings, and they just come out.
Whoa! So you can put more pages or remove them.
So they even have a D&D 5e character one, which I didn't use for this. I just used the lined ones, but they're somewhat magnetic, and they have a little folders piece that you can get with accordion, and you can put your other ones in. So when I travel for conventions, I'm a fountain pen geek.
Ooh, okay.
But I can't use it for this because no one makes friction ink for fountain pens yet.
That's true.
So I use this stuff for my streaming and stuff like that because that's the most writing that I do, and I have to erase it. I need to archive it somehow for my process that I do. But for everything else, I usually use a notebook and write in them, which is this kind of stuff. Yep. And that's for like personal notes and things for me and travel. But I love these.
The same notebook. Do we have the same notebook? This is my notebook for Lord of the Rings. My One Ring game. We might have this.
This is a Moleskine.
Oh, Moleskine.
This is a Moleskine. This is a Midori.
I don't actually. Well, they're close, but yeah, no, it doesn't have the same binding.
Now, Midoris are the same thing. They are individual field note pieces that are rubber banded in that you can take out and replace.
This one I think is saddle stitch, but it's built that way. Yeah, I just can't take them out. Yep.
Yeah. I like that they come out. So
that's very cool.
That's my.
You've got cool stuff. I will say I know, right? I used this one for a while. Hang on.
I'm a big fan of note cards too.
This one's made by Rook and Raven, and I like it a lot. They have a DM book that's kind of nice. I use it for the cruise, mostly because I can pre-prep. But it just allows you to like fill in, like here's one of my pages, all the stats for your monster, so it's all on one page, right? Yep. Which is kind of fun and cool. They've got note pages. I'm like you. I don't take a whole lot of like hard notes. I'm like prep my encounters, prep my things, make the magic item stats, and
so we have a monster that comes up in the first episode, which is the Spellhound. And the way I design the Spellhound stuff is I read what's there, I redressed it for the set piece, I attached it to one of the main characters from the Ebon Tides, which is the Hound. Well, basically he's like a hunter who has hounds with him all the time. I attached it to him, and then what I do is I had all that stuff done. I took screenshots and made a PDF of all of them, so I can just scroll through the monsters I had for that show. So every one of mine were just screenshots of the monsters I needed, because we didn't have it in Roll20 yet. So I just built something. But normally what I'll do is I will comprise them, put them together. Yeah, they're such a cool creature. Yeah. And I usually comprise a folder and I do it per episode. And then if that monster moves to another episode in Roll20, I just drag it to the new episode folder.
Makes sense.
So so you just episode folders. Yep. And I move it up. So if it survives and it's in the new episode folder, I know that there's a chance it can still show up.
It could come back. Oh, that's actually a really nice way of keeping track of stuff too. Cause sometimes
instead of making 1,000.
Yeah, exactly. That's very cool. I like that too. And we did talk about Vault of Magic. Do we want to talk about any of the magic items? Because we don't have to say what we use them for.
Showcase in the first episode. Her lantern's in the first episode.
Her lantern and my jacket.
And your your jacket.
my coat of it's a great item.
It is until there's a Spellhound.
Until there's a Spellhound. We learned that. There's nothing like your infinite coat of pockets. In dumping everything out on the ground in front of you because of Spellhounds. Oh man.
I pulled out a classic bag of holding and portable hole moment.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
In this episode. And I pulled out one, but there's one that you all almost did. You almost put a bag of holding inside of a portable hole, and I was just waiting for it because no one identified it. I didn't want to explain what it was, and I was like, I hope they do this because every GM hopes for that moment. And all the years you ran D&D, you're like, am I gonna get a chance to do this? So it was close. It was close. We almost had it, but instead I got to use spellhounds, and they messed everything up.
Which was also pretty great because there's nothing like a rogue having to literally empty out their pockets. That's like
yeah. Hold on, I'm turning the light back on. I had it turned off so that
Oh, yeah.
maybe you could see stuff, but it didn't work. No, yeah, it was fun. So that was kind of the gist. So I guess if I had to put it in bullet points, it's look through the art, find pieces that I like, look through the special rules section, highlight a special rule or two. It's only 4 episodes. Each episode, I tried to highlight each character, like a heavy highlight. They kind of help do it themselves a lot of times. The second episode, you're going to see what happens when players get to camp.
Yeah, usually just skip over camp from now on, everybody. Our chaos was at full chaos.
I want that episode to be solving, like figuring out what was going on. That was your chance to piece it together so we can move forward. But man, the internal struggle between players, woo!
It definitely it did. Spicy is a good word for it. It did get spicy. That, everybody, is coming to you next Tuesday. Tuesday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, Half Dragon AP. It gets really spicy. But it was also very interesting, too, because there's something very cool about the realm of shadows, which is that it is an unforgiving place to literally almost everything.
Oh, yeah, there was... I didn't see forgiveness as an option at any point.
No, it's such an unforgiving place from the point of like there's no sustenance for you to consume to the point of like everything around you is trying to corrupt you.
And you guys kind of caused a catastrophe at the end.
We did cause a little bit of a catastrophe.
Only time Thieves' Cant has ever been used in a show that I've watched.
Really? Okay, so I do like playing a rogue. It's my third favorite class. But I definitely, when you said there was thieves, because how many times as a rogue have you been like, is anything do you see any thieves' cant around this town? And a GM's like, no, there's no thieves' cant around this town. Every game I've ever played for decades, it was the first time I actually felt like it was super duper useful to both the plot and
it made a big difference. Actually,
it was like and we saved everybody's luggage kind of before the train crash.
Sorta. But like Thieves' Cant is one of those things that Thieves' Cant, the ability to do the Druid speak stuff, is looked over a lot because the way all languages end up usually being in a game is a barrier. And my yesterday episode that I ran, language is a huge part because it was a dead language that very few people know unless you learn from ancients, and you can make it work and you can make it entertaining. And everyone's like, oh, but we're just gonna explain it to the other person. And when I tell GMs, I'm like, that's fine. If somebody is doing it, my rule is very simple. Raise the DC. And for every person that speaks it in the group to help mediate between the two, lower the DC.
Oh, that makes sense.
Because while I'm talking to the person in whatever the language may be, if I am the one who has to go, they're saying X. That's a lot of time. Have any of you ever been on a tech call before? It's not fun that way. But if there's me talking to you in a language and then somebody else speaks that language and they are interpreting it for you, that helps. And if you have a third person, I just get rid of the penalty because then there's enough people who can be like, listen, Frank, we'll explain it to you when it's done. You should have taken Elvin. So, but like I let them kind of do it that way and I raise the DC. In 5e, I add a disadvantage to all form of interactions if only one person speaks it, and they're translating. If they're not translating, it's just conversation. You obviously don't do that. But if there's a group conversation and everybody wants to be involved and they all want to make their skill checks, I add disadvantage. And then if there's 2 people involved, it's a wash. And then if it's 3 and it's a group people talking and the persuasion's going well, I just lower the DC. Because to me, that's the easiest way to handle languages, but it gives people a reason to remember they have them.
Yes, it's true. And it's a cool thing. I mean, there's not many classes that have their own language, class language, not racial
No,
language.
there's two.
There's two, and it's rogue and druidic,
Yep.
right? And they don't often get used at the elevation. They're very clearly separate from the rest of the languages for a reason.
Yup.
And to really get to see, it's a very cool moment to get to see, thieves can. There's a literal look of sheer surprise on my face.
Oh, I
when you're
know.
like,
I was like, I'm
actually,
gonna get Dot with this.
actually, there is, and I was like, what?
Yeah, because
Like,
there was a criminal operation going on.
None of us knew. We thought this
It's
was
basically
totally
written innuendo.
yeah, exactly. So anyways, it's funny actually. I think of Thieves' Cant similar to do you know the hobo language or the
I
language?
was just gonna say that. I
Yeah,
use it in my modern games all the time.
Me too. I actually used it for a character in a VTM campaign one time because
Yep.
they were
My
before they were
Malkavian
turned.
spoke it.
Yeah, and my
Or
game
wrote
rule
it, I
did.
should say.
Yeah, wrote it. Yeah, and so I think it's very interesting because I imagine Thieves' Cant is very similar. You know what I mean? Like it's like
Mhm.
it's like leaving a message behind that's like, don't go in this house. This guy's an asshole. You
Yep.
know, and it's like a stick figure shooting you the bird.
Yeah,
like
we all play Dark Souls.
You know what I mean?
Dark Souls with the written messages everywhere.
Yeah,
You're
it's
gonna die
it's very
here.
cool. It's very cool. And yeah, languages. Somebody in chat was just like, "Oh, languages," because they just don't get it. The question usually is, "Do you speak that language? Yes or no?"
Mhm.
But to be able to go a little bit farther, it's actually one of the things I love most about the video game No Man's Sky. No
Yeah.
Man's Sky has that wonderful mechanic where you
Yep.
don't speak the languages of any of the aliens, and you have to scour the universe,
Yep.
learning it word by word by word.
It's true. It's true.
And I'll tell you, there's nothing better than getting to the point where a almost full sentence makes sense from an alien creature. You're like, holy crap, I almost speak this. I know what they're saying.
This language. Yep, it's true though. Like it's
cool.
kind of a magical moment. Like especially in a world where look, some of my friends can speak numerous languages. I am not one of those people.
Me neither.
Like I understand a little bit of each language when I was doing travels for my other job, but I speak nothing fluently, especially not anymore. I think if I was thrown back into the areas that those languages were, I'd probably pick it up again. Okay, not it. My lady, on the other hand, Spanish, not kitchen Spanish, because we both worked in restaurants forever, but like actually understands it, can speak it well. Not me. Nope.
Yeah. Me neither.
That's
I'm like
okay.
you. I have like kitchen Spanish, and like I at one point I was kind of learning German. And so I have like some general German things that I can say, but the fact of the matter is I'm with you. I don't speak any other languages, and I don't know, it's like a cool thing that gives a lot of depth to a character. Like it was a
Yep.
great moment for my character to be able to say, "Wait a second, I'm the only person here that knows what's going
Yes.
on."
Yeah.
And it was really affirming as a player, and it was a really cool story moment that actually tied some of our plot in. Quite heavily.
It wasn't supposed to originally. So
Oh.
so ready here behind the curtains. You went to go. This is GM 101. You went to
Beans
look at the
Village.
suitcases. And I was like, I have two pieces of information I have to deliver, and a way to do this. And it is the luggage that is important. I have to wait to have that get out at some point in time. It was either going to be then or in the wreckage. So we
Mhm.
gave a little foreshadowing with it. You
Mhm.
found it, but you didn't find the crate when you were going through everything.
Right.
The crate wasn't found really until a little bit later. So I did that, and you changed everything. I was like, if she ships this to another place, I can't wait.
It's gonna be a hot mess.
Because I was gonna do the Marvel like after the credits of where it's at, wherever you ended up shipping it.
Oh, that's fun.
And we didn't do that. You did it and you kept it around, and then everything wrecked and it changed a bunch of things. But a bunch of that luggage goes out to like other areas, and people get the wrong things and stuff like that. As you were like swapping tags and had like your own mental note of everything, which is hilarious. But I did that, and I had random stuff table.
Yeah.
And the random stuff table for me, I have 4 of them that are just in this little piece, like note cards. So again, Rocketbook makes note cards that you
That's
can write
also
down and
super
erase
cool.
and reuse, because I burn through note cards in my design stuff. And I was like, okay, I have these random tables. I'm going to use these for luggage. And then you decided to crawl into the luggage. I was like, oh, I got to see what she's getting knocked around.
And another
by
thing I
inside the
did not
luggage.
expect you to have prepped. Like I was like, I'm a tiny squirrel. I'm gonna crawl into the luggage. I'm gonna be super duper safe. And then Eric's like, no. Pause. I actually have this prepared. I was like, you have a table prepared for random stuff. In a
Random
suitcase?
stuff. Yeah.
And he was like, actually, I do. Roll a dice. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God. Like,
Yeah, it was just random stuff in general, and there's like kind of situationals, like one's in a container, one's in the environment, one is in a person's head in case you do like thought reading.
Right.
And which is fun. And then if you roll a certain success rate, or if you roll a high number, I'll give you a little bit more of what you need. It was pretty fun to do that. But the metal bust being in, I was like, oh, this is great. I can't wait for a
when you
squirrel to
told
get
me
hit by
that,
a brass bust.
man, I got like what I rolled a 3. It was like
That was a
glass.
3. Bust
Yeah,
is
it was a
3.
3. So the bust
Yeah.
was a 3, and you were
And
like,
then
"Oh
I
yeah,
just went to
there's
a materials table
silverware
and rolled on the
table."
materials
Yeah.
table. Yeah, and it's
Yes.
fun. I love random tables. Like it's something. It's weird. We all moved away from random tables for a long time in
Yep.
tabletop.
Yep.
I
I
blame
love them.
Rollmaster. And Warhammer Fantasy, even though I liked both of those games at one point in time. I blame those two things. And then companies, especially in the indie scene, really started bringing random tables
Yep.
back. And now, like, I'm a big fan of Shadow of the Demon Lord by Rob Schwab. I
Yep.
also love the stuff that you see in, like, Mothership, Mork Borg. Those random tables are fantastic. And there's some other ones out there, like, even though people are mad at the person who made them, Maze of the Blue Medusa has great tables in it. Vornheim has great tables in it. Very
Yep.
creative ways that they learn to make tables on a book, and you roll
Yep.
on the book for stuff. Genius. I always said in the front of a book for a plane hopping game, I want a spinner with the planes that you flick.
Oh, that's cool to just
The
see
front
where
of a
you
book
end
and
up.
be like, here's where you end up for your random plane jump, quantum leap, let's go.
Yeah.
But I love that stuff, and random tables are something we're starting to see now make it back into again into the big titles again. We're
We
seeing it
actually
in
we
your
actually
5Ds and
did a
stuff.
run of so a book that's actually getting ready to drop to the public, which is Campaign Builder Cities and Towns, which is actually one of my I'm gonna be honest, y'all. I love all of Kobold Press's products, but I don't know that I've been so hyped for a
It's
book. It is
that.
so cool. It's basically a random table book, like series
Yep.
of generators to generate cities and towns. There's even a city character sheet where you can fill
Yep.
in a character sheet for your city, so that it's just a book of the cities and what's going on politically and who are your key NPCs. And so we actually did some random rolling using some of the tables, and I loved the way they did them. I loved the way they laid them out, from the naming generators to like what you're rolling for that's going in this random. And I forget sometimes how much I like a good random generator,
Well,
because
it
it's
sparks. It
fun. Yeah,
sparks
yeah.
ideas. It sparks interest. It does the thing when your brain, like if you're a GM, I highly recommend using them, because when you're GMing, you will, just like a TV show, get stale because it does the same thing over and over again. GMs don't even realize it, especially if they're not recording their content. If you're recording your content and re-listening to it, you'll notice the things you use all the time. Like, I am known for having espionage and having like people who look like other people and things, hiding in plain sight stuff, like that old Cold War. I'm known for having that, and I noticed I used it, so I'm like, I'm not using it all during this next campaign. There will be no changelings, no intellect devour. Like, I make sure that I don't do the same things to my players every time. But that book that you're talking about, there was one. I think it's from the 80s, 80s,
Oh,
90s. I don't remember if it was Palladium, but it was a city book. It's a red cover. I'm looking through all my PDFs right now as we're
trying to
talking.
find it.
Yeah, it is a really hard book to find. And then you told me you guys were making that, and I was like, what? Because that
It's
book was like a staple for me as a kid growing up.
I'm telling you, I am so excited about it. Like, I was like, I was like, oh, this is new for Kobold Press. This is not a beast
Yeah.
book. This is not an adventure. It's not even a guide for building a world. It's a town builder.
Yep.
And it was so much fun to do a town builder with the audience during a run of Kobold Chats, because we basically, it has a guild option. You could random roll for all your guilds. And
Oh, nice.
yeah, it is so cool. Your politics, the weather, like what is
Yep.
the weather here? What is your landscape? Like almost everything. And then has some really cool like additions to that, where you can like kind of create your NPCs, who's key here, so forth and so on. But it really inspired us. And by the time we were done, all of us were like, God, we want to play a campaign in this town. We
Yeah,
want to
that's
play
what
it.
happens.
Yeah, it got us so excited.
Yeah, I can't find. I'll have to look it up later. I'll give it to you for show notes if you do show
Yeah,
notes.
yeah.
But like there's something about the way that worked. There was an old third edition one when the covers were black with the red titles for D&D. That was a
Yep.
world building one that came with hex paper, square paper, and taught you to build a world. I still have that as a world designer. Like, that's my jam.
That's
Like, I
cool.
love making new set pieces, and that's one of those things that like I always go to it. I'll pull it out probably once a year and look at it. And that other
Right.
one, the Village book, I can't remember the name of it for my life, but it's the same thing. It's kind of got the random tables to help you build out
Yep.
a city. And I was always inspired by Tullus back in the day from Monty Cook Games and that large
Yeah.
city atmosphere. I love city games. For those who know me outside of rolling, that even looks. I wonder if Wolfgang wrote the original.
He might have. There's a very there's a very high probability he did, because this is our new one, right, which is totally back to, but you can pre-order it now. It's coming. It's just around the corner, everybody.
Like how around the corner?
I mean, I'm
Can you
making
say?
plans to do things with it before the end of the year.
You do it. If you do a design show with that, you best have me on.
Oh, well, I got not only design shows, but I got big old plans for things to do with it. If y'all like if y'all like text-based RPG, oh boy, Dot's got plans. We're spilling beans today.
I rode mods back in the day.
So I might actually have to hit you up. But yeah, it's very, very cool. I was gonna see if I could get to the updates on some of this. And see when the next. So that's that was the last one was back in September, which seems about right for updates anyways. Because right now we're just it's in process. I know it's in print. We're dealing with the shipping thing and when it's going to happen and all that kind of stuff. But
isn't dealing with that crap right now,
right? It's just a thing. But I'm telling you, like it was not the one I was most excited about when the Kickstarter launched, and then when I started getting preview content of it and working with
excited
chat,
now.
Holy moly! I cannot wait. I literally want to be able. You could build a whole world around just the cities themselves and the conflicts in which this random table could generate for you.
Well, I mean, you guys did Midgard, and Midgard is such a elaborately large city. I feel like this has to be part of the process that was used for some of that.
Oh, no doubt. Like the way that kind of Wolfgang built out Midgard, which is like a massive world, y'all. There's so much to Midgard. I still don't know everything. It's huge. One day, maybe when I'm like old and y'all don't want to see my face online anymore, I'll run like a long-term Midgard campaign.
We talking about everyone's heads over heels because of Angela Lansbury right now. I don't think age has anything to do with.
Okay, that's good. Because if I'm old and crusty, I could play Baba Yaga and then run this really great Midgard game for everybody. Yeah, one day when you get Grandma Dot,
is Grandma Dot called something else then? Is it Grandma Splot? Like, is it a splat instead of a dot?
I don't know. My nephew calls me Dottie instead of Aunt Dot.
That's adorable.
He calls me Dottie, so I guess I'll be old Dottie. I do also have a moniker that I use in almost every video game I play, which is Lady Dottie Rouge. So I could step up in the world and become a lady as well.
Oh man, was there? Oh, I know. Before we get close to end here, was there anything else for Roll20 that you wanted me to?
No, that was. I kind of wanted to show off like your process because I found it very intriguing and very interesting as we worked on it, and then I wanted to show some of the cool stuff.
Should we show the inside? I'll show the inside of the baggage area. This is where Dot. This is where Dot caused a catastrophe.
Actually, in a way, it was using that magic item, wasn't it?
This is the baggage area where you went through and messed everything up. And with Thieves Can't. It was super fun. But there's a bunch of maps here. I could show you one of the ones we didn't go. Oh, so I can show you something. Do you want me to show the city that we didn't end up going to that we're on the outskirts of?
Oh yeah, sure.
So this is a non-animated map, but this is put together with just some tool pieces. And this is all the heraldry for the vampire city that is in the book. And it has that shadow. I use that shadow. Anytime the shadows were near, I would push that to the forefront so people knew we were in a dangerous area. It's a reminder for the characters, the players themselves, that like, yo, you're in a dangerous spot right now. But yeah.
Yeah, a dot-tastrophe. I could not have said that better myself. Let's brand that, trademark it, put it on a t-shirt.
Thanks, Serving Hands. She's a regular over on my network.
Oh, nice. Thank you. Yes, that was wonderful.
Yeah, so that's been like one of my go-to is building things like that. And this, so here I can move it now. These are actually just pieces.
Oh, okay, yeah. So they're just layered on.
Thanks, Siri. I'm glad you're not sure about these are pieces.
She's not sure about your pieces, man.
And then that's our table too. If you scroll over, we have that's the other thing too. We did do I did pop the tables in here. so that when people were looking at them, you can, here, I'll do show to players. You should be able to pick it up.
Yep.
If you click that, that's like our tables for travel time. This is the thing I was talking about, depending on your survival check on how quickly things go. 100% to 50%. That's the failure rate stuff for that. And then we added the manifestation. There is tide markings that can happen to you. Let me show that to you. There's tide markings that can happen to you, and things can happen in the area when the tides manifest into things. We did have a small moment of that at one point in time. And then the other thing I picked out that I thought was kind of cool is the realm status adjustments, because you're dealing with Fey courts.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a brief moment, because I didn't know how Fey we would get with this because of what we were dealing with. And you had a chance when you were in front of something later on. This could have taken effect for all the stuff that you guys did.
It's true. I feel like we did reference this once or twice because our cleric was a little bit more in tune to the court.
He was a ex-ambassador or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, but I did put this into effect behind the scenes because of your decision in episode 2.
Oh, yeah, that was bound to have repercussions. Sorry, y'all, we can't spoil it because it's like it's a hard choice that was made.
Oh,
and I cannot.
It was a 2-hour choice that was made.
It was, and I'm not going to spoil it for you.
No.
But you do get to see more magic items used. We don't technically burn everything down, but I will say each one of those tables does come out of Book of Ebon Tides. It's like part of the realm of shadow and the effects that take place here, because my understanding, both as having read it and played it now, is that travel is not easy. When everything around you is trying to corrupt you, you can't get from point A to point B very easily. And so there's a lot of aspects to travel and getting from place to place in a safe way that is written into these awesome rollable tables. Which we just saw. And I want to reference the house crest as well, which is something I really love.
Yeah.
These crests, so each of the major cities in the Shadow Realm have one, but I believe this is so funny we're talking about this. In Campaign Builder cities and towns, there are they have a suggestion for building a crest for your city, like a flag basically, which is very cool.
That's awesome.
Yep.
That's awesome.
So it's a really neat stuff. But it comes most obviously when you're dealing with such socialized combat as like the Shadow Fae, which is basically it's trickery, illusion, and hopefully as much charisma as you can toss at it. So
this was the world map in the book, right? And I was trying to explain to people that it's 50 miles. That line that's in the upper left is a 50-mile marker, right? And it's pretty far to travel somewhere, and then to have it be 100% slower because the road shifts on you or changes or something on that.
Right.
And this map, maybe it's just me, Dark Crystal vibes.
Super hardcore.
100%.
Yeah, for sure.
So this is the map too, and I just put 2 halves of the map together in this, so we had a full map in case it came up.
Yep.
But this is all the prep. Like, everyone's like, how much prep do you do? I'm like, for the first show, a lot, but it's all visual prep.
Right. I'm like that too. I do a lot of visual prep. Here's the book, everybody. I do actually have a copy here with myself. And then I have a hard copy, and I thought I'd pull that photo up, like show you it in the book, but it does also have some other cool maps. Like I thought your use of the Fey Court map at the end was really nice. I won't spoil too much.
I don't know what you're talking about. I pushed that to the background.
Yeah, I won't spoil it, but I
double checked before we came to this screen that it wasn't up.
That wasn't up. Yeah, here. Now I know because I've seen it. But yeah. This is great. Now I didn't see any questions come through chat. Chat, if you have them, we are actually over time. Eric and I talk too much.
I don't have anything till 5, so I'm fine.
Oh, perfect.
So we're totally good to answer questions and do some Q&A if you got anything like that.
Oh, this is a great question. Let's get this added to the screen here. Do you like one-shots or campaigns more in terms of DMing, and why?
So here's the deal. I like one-shots for a very selfish reason. They are more work for a GM. I will say that first off. Everyone thinks one-shots, it's a one-shot. Like, if you're going to do a good one-shot, like a one-shot for a convention or to really impress people with a game, to make them want to play more of it, it's a shit ton more work.
Yep.
But I do it to decide if that is a good group to play together for a long-term campaign.
Oh.
So in the background, I have a big spreadsheet of all the people I've ever played with and the chemistry between them and how good they are at a table together or on screen together. Because one person doesn't play well with another doesn't make them bad. It just means that may not be the game for them. Like, on Norse Foundry when I'm running it, I ran aliens. I love aliens.
Me too, so much.
Diana, the stress was too much.
Couldn't
Like,
handle it, really.
She's like, I push people when I run that game.
Me too. I actually have a game tonight if it means anything.
And I ran it action packed, and I did a cross between Blade Runner. Before we even knew Blade Runner was coming out, I just did it. So I did that because I think one shots are a great way to test the waters and see if they work well, and you're not overcommitting to something. Nothing's worse than signing up for 6 games of something and wanting out at game 1.
Yep. It just doesn't work.
So you do a one shot, and if everyone's characters are great and they jive together is great, and you want more, because first off, as a GM, don't ever think that you're there just for the players. You're also there for yourself.
Yeah, you need to enjoy it.
Yeah. And if you don't, it's not going to be a fun game from you, and that is how burnout happens. So make sure you like the people that you're with for the game. So that one shot's what I'm looking for. Campaigns I love because I love long-term stories. But my favorite kind of set piece is that 10 to 12 sessions is like my jam, because I love lower leveled campaigns. Because the higher level campaigns is a lot of prep work, unless it's a system that is really made for that over grandioso style, like the old Aberrant game, or Blades in the Dark is really easy to run a high level. I like that stuff, but also it's not the GM that's all the prep. Players have a lot more work when they're hitting that 10 to 20 level gap.
Yeah.
And you need to know your spells. You need to do your homework. If you want it to run smoothly and get as most out of it as you can. Otherwise, it's a lot of sitting and hemming and hawing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it loses so much of the storytelling and role play when and a lot of people like the mechanics, and a lot I have been at tables where it has been fun to just min-max the hell out of it.
It can be.
But I think when you're I have found over the years, sometimes I really just prefer the storytelling piece of it, and the mechanics or the high level mechanics can oftentimes stop that pacing, that
it depends on the game too. Like I said, so like 5e high level really isn't that hard for the GM, because DCs are static in 5e. They don't really change that much. You're doing advantage, disadvantage, or +2 or -2. And while you need to kind of know your stuff for it, you don't need to do as much work as you did in previous editions. But the players still have to do a ton. And like dropping into a 15th level game with even the best crafted character and best crafted character sheet, Roll20, everything hyperlinked, is still time consuming. I never recommend jumping into a super high level game.
Yep.
Because you have no vested interest. You're just going to throw them into the fire. And for long-term campaigns, like starting at like level 5 is a great starting point, slow grow. I really enjoy that kind of play, but it's got to be the right group, man. You got to want to be with them every week, or I have to be paid. Because I pay GM. I know you do paid GMing as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's like, dear diary, note to self.
Sorry, sorry. Note to self: be more like Erik Frankhouse.
No, that's not a note.
No, okay,
don't take
so
that note.
Sorry.
Don't take that note.
No, I do. I run a lot of one shots. But yeah, Wait, what was the question?
Oh, it was about if you wore orange glasses as a principal. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
So, no.
Yeah, I did not.
No. I was saying I think that high level games are great to start if you're like 5 to 6 to 7 and slow grow it. That's kind of the thing. I don't really like starting people at 15th level.
Yeah.
So my answer is they both serve purposes. They're just a tool in my arsenal. You get paid GM is a question to you. So like if I'm paid, I will run your campaign.
I do pay GMing, yes.
But while it is my job to get you characters or help you with characters, as a player, I'm there to make you a better player. As a GM, like part of my job as a paid GM is to craft this great story with you as a group, but it is for you to be a more prepared player, learn how to come to the table prepared. Like, look, the best thing at a table as a GM is a note taker. If you have a note taker at your table, they're your favorite person.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah. Yeah. Like, my character for this one ring game is our archivist. So she literally, this is her book. So she is keeping notes, which are our campaign notes for this game.
Dot, you should get one of those big pulpit pieces that goes in front of you, so the book is here, like this, Dot. Just a big book in front of you that you write that you like peek over top of.
We collected. We collected a map last game from somebody. But to get to our last question, because I am going to call it today, because guess what? After this stream, everybody Dot goes on vacation. Woohoo! And I want to start
Dot's staying
that.
until
No
I
offense
have
to
to
all
go
of
to
you.
my next show. She's got 2 more hours of work.
No, not happening. It's not happening. No, but that question is, do you have homebrew rules that you feel help motivate narrative and or combat? Now, I have thoughts on this, but I definitely want to hear if you have homebrew rules that you use to assure that.
I have tons. There are a few books in my arsenal. One, if you've never played Blades in the Dark, learn it, run it, and then take the idea of countdown clocks and bring it into every game you run. It lets the world feel alive. It's the difference between playing a crappy video game and a Grand Theft Auto where the world just feels real. That is literally what countdown clocks do for your game. I highly recommend doing that. So for narrative, I am a big fan of handing over narrative control for things for players. So when we walk into a scene and it's their favorite bar or their favorite place or even a combat scene, I will ask the players, we are in a let's just say we're in a open field, the outskirts of a ruins. The ruins are a green brick with runes carved on them. What season are we in right now? And I'll ask the players to do it, because now when they say what it is and they say we're in winter, I'm like, and the ground is covered in snow as it crunches under your feet. Is it currently snowing? And another player will be like, yeah, it's hailing out. And I'm like, sure is. And hail can be seen pounding on the stone in the distance. And behind that, you see a shadow walking forward taller than the ruins. They're like, oh. I'm like, yep. What is the shadow?
Oh, fudge. Yeah.
What do you see in it? And when you ask them that kind of narrative stuff, they get to add what they want it to be. Maybe they've always wanted to fight a storm giant. Maybe it's their long lost ancestors. Someone really throws, you have a Matt at your table and he's like, that's my father, and they throw some crazy thing at you. It allows them to have some narrative in. And no matter what your players tell you, you can still inject your narrative naturally if you find the little pieces and let them take that hook and run with it. That's the goal as a GM. Good narrative means your players are invested, and you make them invested by letting them add things to it. Cypher system with GM intrusion and player intrusion really helped me learn that a lot, and doing that kind of stuff. For combat, I think combat is honestly, while it is difficult, the hardest thing to run is any form of naval combat or spaceship combat. That is the 2 hardest things to run in tabletop history, because it is people standing at a station. I recommend running it like Star Trek, where everyone's doing something. And then, speaking of Star Trek, I think the other narrative
that's how Free League builds their spacecraft. As
GM, I believe in that every time an NPC is on scene or on camera again, you give them another ability, or you showcase one of their stats, or you add a new skill to them, or you make a skill roll you didn't do before. So instead of building an NPC all out front, just look, descriptor, personality, 1 trait. And every time they're on scene, add another one, and make a rule for yourself. If they get 5 traits because they've been on scene 5 times, you make a character for them. Whatever helps you, but I never make things out all the way because players are going to kill them.
Cool.
Combat.
Absolutely.
Ditch initiative. Just don't do it. Don't do initiative. Make
I let
it
them
easier.
choose. I let them choose initiative. Actually, one of the things I love about the alien mechanic is it's a card based.
Yeah, you get to draw and do something. So one of the favorite initiative things I think I do for close is Rob Schwab did Shadow Demon Lord, and there's fast and slow initiative. And in that game, all monsters go after players. Unless they have a special rule that says fast. Then they go before players. In his new version, which is Weird Wizard that he's doing, he ditched all of that and made it even. I didn't think you could boil it down any better. But he goes, all monsters go first, period. Unless you seize initiative. If you seize initiative, you can do an action or a move. Now you go first, unless there's something else that tells you otherwise. Like a monster always goes first. And then there's wrap up. And I love wrap up because, like, when you drink potions, your potions don't happen until wrap up. That is the one thing for combat. Like, I know everyone thinks initiative matters. It doesn't matter that much. It really doesn't. Unless you're doing a dungeon crawl, then yes, do it. Otherwise, let your players work in order, because it takes the pressure off a player to be ready. It lets them watch other people, because some players watch other players do something and react. Other people are really action-based and they dive right in and they lead everything. Everyone follows, and it lets the players kind of form their own dynamic. If your players don't make a decision, ask a player. Just ask them, what do you do in this scene? What do you want to do? If they're looking through 1,000 spells, like, pick one. I'm not here to make your life harder. We're here to make a story, because there's so much of that 3-0 and back nonsense of like, I'm out to kill the players. That it may sound like that as a GM, but we're really just trying to make a story with you. So combat, make it fun, make it fast. Don't drag it out. This isn't miniature combat, everybody. Like, don't make a war game. We're not playing 40K, and if you are, there's a miniature game for it.
Actually, Fate has one of my favorite mechanics for initiative, which is the first person that takes action is first to go. So if they shoot first, they're going first. If you shoot first, and then when your turn is over, you pass it to anybody you want. You could pass it to them. You could pass it to another player, and then that player popcorns and passes it to who they want. And it's interesting how that builds a different narrative when you think, oh, this is our strongest fighter. I'm going to let him go last. I'm passing it to the bad guy because he doesn't get the last hit, right?
Death in Space is like that. So they do the initiative pass where it's like, all right, everybody, roll. And you do the first roll, whoever has the highest number goes first, and then after that, they pass it. And they realize quickly, like, I give it to the player, I give it to the player, I give it to the player. And then all of a sudden, all the monsters go, and they're like, oh, we should have spaced this out. and panic sets in, which is what you want in that set piece. So I think those would be my main things. And combats, man, don't get too dug down in the rules. If your player doesn't know the rules, a GM, that's on them. Make up a rule, say, hey, look it up. Next round, we'll do the right rule. Just for now, we're going to keep moving while it's everybody else's turn. Look up that rule, because then we'll know it. And then I always ask them to either give me the book, but really I would pass them a note card and say, just write it down for me. I'll be honest, I didn't want it. I may even know the rule. I just want them to write it down so they can remember it.
You've got that teacher mentality.
Sometimes it came from being a bodyguard for a long time and teaching and dealing with people all the time. That's really what it came from. Like making people do stuff. So instead of just asking for something, making them do it, and they'd be like, oh, I can do this myself. Like, yeah, you can do it yourself. You're not an idiot. Like, most people can do most things. You just gotta do it. Yeah, that's the truth though. But keep it fast and narrative. Involve your players in the narrative. Don't do it all yourself. Don't burden that whole thing yourself. And then write down highlighted moments. Really, really brief 3-word notes and get right back into the game. What is it? Sometimes quickest instincts make the best narrative.
I'm glad you stopped by too, TNE Network.
What's that?
Yeah, so glad that you stopped by as well, TNE Network. Thank you so much. This was a great stream, and it's been an absolute joy getting to chat with you again, Erik. I'm going to wrap us because your girl's going on vacation. Woohoo! That means that we're going to have a few 5 or so days without any content for Kobold Press, but do not fret. I'll be back, maybe from the woods. We'll see. I don't know what all you're going to do. Maybe you can watch our YouTube VODs. Actually, you can go. You can go check out the Campaign Builder Cities and Towns Kobold chat if you want to see us building that sweet city I told you about. That's what you can go do.
You should probably link that in chat.
But Erik, tell everybody where they can find you.
You can find me, Erik Frankhouse Presents.
You're going to talk about you while I link it.
You can find me at Erik Frankhouse Presents everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, you name it. I interact with people mostly on Twitter and conversations. I am the person who is known for, if you don't like my show, there's an X in the upper right-hand corner. You can turn it off. I say that all the time when we get people who come in. And then I'm also Norse Foundry Network Director. I run all their games Monday and Wednesdays. Monday we're at 8. Wednesdays we're at 5. Tonight we are building Kaiju Live. And you use Stream Loot cards to help build Kaiju monsters. It has been a riot. Oh, and those Kaiju monsters are what they deal with in the upcoming shows. Yeah.
That sounds very cool.
It is a riot. I absolutely love it. And I always do my Monday and Wednesday shows that way. And Serving Hands will probably say it, Wednesday never forgets. And they never forgive either, as they are always trying to murder the Monday show every time. It's such a riot to see the dichotomy between the two. They come watch, Wednesday tries to help prep the show, Monday tries to save the show, and it's just a cycle, and it has been a riot to see for the last 2 years.
That's awesome. Okay, yeah. I did find it. Look what I did while you were talking.
Did you?
I will link you to the first one. You may have to go seek out. I did. I found it. You may have to go seek out the rest of them because we did them in a couple pieces, and I brought on some of the
Okay.
writers to actually get to roll on their own tables and stuff. But here's at least the first one. This kicks us off, and you will know what you're looking for then from that point forward. So there you go, everybody. Thank you again. We will be back next Wednesday, same Kobold time, same Kobold channel for another Kobold Chats where we talk all things Kobold Press. Thank you so much, Eric, for being here.
Thanks
You
for
had
having
so
me
much
on.
great insight, and we will see you all next time.
Bye,
Oh, you know what?
everybody.
I'm going to leave them
Oh,
with the
wait.
Traitorous trailer.
Ooh.